My name is Kylie Okai, and I'm the Program Associate here at the Center for Culture Innovation. Thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar will be recorded. You probably got the little notification there. However, if you don't want to appear, you don't want to show your face, even though we love seeing people's faces, you can turn off your camera or change your screen name. We're also using auto captioning for anyone that needs subtitles. The way to do this is to click the live caption or live transcript at the bottom of your Zoom window, and you can enable it to say, show subtitles or view the full transcript. And so today, you can also follow along with the slide deck. We have one that we're going to drop into the chat for you. So you can have that for your reference after today's webinar. And I also want to show that today I am calling from Hampton, Virginia. And as we're all like moving and shifting, but I would like to acknowledge that I am here on the historic lands of the homeland of the Kogan peoples out here on the East Coast. So yeah, and so if you want to drop in your acknowledgements in the chat, that'd be great too. But yes, that's where I'm at. I'm over on the other side of the country today. So yeah, a little bit about this webinar. The objective of the webinar is to provide an opportunity to promote CCI's programs that are available to artists and arts workers across the state of California. Specifically today, we're looking at quick grants and CALI Catalyst Grants, as well as the business of art. Today, you'll hear from grantees and participants about the support that they had received through these programs. And you'll be able to learn from them about grant seeking tips. And also you have the opportunity to ask them questions of us, the program staff, and the presenters. So it's a really great opportunity to learn more about the work that we do and also how people have navigated it. So a little bit about CCI. If you're new to us, if you're new to the Center for Cultural Innovation, we're a 501c3 nonprofit that was founded in 2001, and we're headquartered in LA as well as the Bay Area. And our main focus is supporting artists and arts workers exclusively through business trainings, workshops. We even commissioned research specific for it, and also our grant programs, which you're going to learn more about today. If you'd like to learn more about the opportunities that we provide, we're going to drop a link in the chat as well. You can click on that and find out more about us. So that's enough from me. I'm sure y'all are excited to learn more about the work that we do. So I'm going to pass it over to Laura Poppity.
Thanks, Kylie. That was energetic. I love it. Really set a good pace for us. As Kylie said, I'm Laura Poppity. I'm the program director at Center for Cultural Innovation. I'll be providing a high-level overview of the CALI Catalyst Grant Program before turning it over to a few of CALI's 2021 grantees. While we're presenting, feel free to drop CALI-specific questions in the chat, as well as we'll have some time to address these before moving on to the workshop's other topics. So to start, excuse me, pardon me, what is CALI Catalyst? CALI Catalyst provides unrestricted grants of up to $5,000 to California changemakers whose bold, you don't mind muting?
Yeah.
Oh, if you, okay, I think that'll be addressed in a second. Okay, so for bold actions that are shifting the arts and culture sector in ways that give underrepresented populations, including Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQIA+, and people with disabilities, more power and influence. So let's talk about some of these items that we have in bold. By unrestricted grant, let's go back one slide. We're saying that CALI isn't a project-based award and isn't meant to accomplish specific outcomes. Rather, it can be used in whatever way is helpful to the grantee, with the exception of applying funds to lobbying or election influencing activities. Bold actions. So these are actions that took place on or after January 1st, 2020, or actions that are in progress, so long as they also began on or after January 1st, 2020. And we refer to these actions as being bold because they've resulted in tangible changes or shifts within the sector. Which brings me to my next term in bold, arts and culture sector. So CCI understands the arts and culture sector to encompass a wide spectrum of creative industries, artistic disciplines and practices, cultural expressions, and areas of focus, and all at varying scales. However, we're more interested in knowing how applicants self-define arts and culture sector, and importantly, what aspects of it they are trying to overtly influence. Which brings me to the terms power and influence. How these are defined will be relative to your region, right? It's going to look different depending on where you are in California and what kind of the arts and culture sector you're working within. But generally, we can think of these as creating more inclusion, access, diversity, and equity for underrepresented communities. Next slide. CALI Catalyst eligibility. Who can apply? Well, applicants can be individuals or teams of individuals. And just to unpack that briefly, no 501c3 organizations can apply for this grant. No. Just individuals, whether as a sole person or as a team. Whichever the case, however you're showing up as an applicant, you also must be an artist or arts worker. For example, we give some examples of arts administrator, cultural producer, culture bearer, creative, cultural practitioner, teaching artist, or specialized technician. And you also have to be a full-time resident of California. And then we have one little asterisk note that I want to point out. Thank you. So only one application will be accepted per team. So that means individual team members won't each submit a separate application. Instead, teams will elect a single team member, a kind of a lead or a primary contact. And if funding is approved, this individual will be responsible for fulfilling the grant requirements, which are mostly signing the grant agreement and completing a brief final report. Next slide. Review criteria. So how are we making decisions? Applicants will be reviewed against 3 criteria. The first is impact on arts and culture sector. And for this, we'll be asking these evaluative questions. The first one, is the applicant's change-making action shifting entire sectors, such as the entirety of the museum or theater sectors, to move away from the status quo? Next, are there tangible and measurable ways that the applicant is helping underrepresented communities gain more power? For example, through governance authority, through causal changing of the guards, or shifting industry or regulatory policies and practices? And then, did the applicant play a causal role in the catalyzing change that was realized? So can we point to this one person or team as being the originator of the change that occurred? That's what we mean by causal role. The next criterion, the intention to enact greater inclusion, access, diversity, and equity. So we're asking, is the applicant's change-making action aimed at helping underrepresented communities gain more influence and build power? And then finally, informed perspective. Does the applicant have direct experience with the arts and culture sector, and are they of an underrepresented community? There. Okay, next slide. Great, so our 2022 application deadline. We are offering 3 open application rounds in 2022. The remaining rounds are round number 2, which we're currently in. It's open and we're accepting applications, and it's from May 3rd to June 30th. That's the deadline for round 2, and applications are due at 12 p.m., aka noon. Then the next and final round, round 3, that'll open July 6th, and that's included the November 5th. Okay, so that's the end of my slides. And that was like the most high-level overview I've ever given of CALI Catalyst, because we have a lot to cover today. So that said, I encourage you to review the program's full guidelines, frequently asked questions, past grantee profiles, and application preview. which you can find on CCI using the link that I will drop in the chat momentarily. And for those watching the recording, head to CCI's website at www.cciarts.org. And from there, you'll be able to navigate to the CALI grant page. Now, it is my esteemed pleasure to turn it over to 2021 CALI Catalyst grantee and LA-based artist, Joel Garcia, who's going to tell you a bit about his work. Welcome, Joel.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. And before beginning, I live here in East LA, born and raised here. And so I want to just kind of ground ourselves in artists. These are things that I can't ignore because they happen in my community and they're happening in all our communities now. So I just want to ground us with that. I'm here in East LA, the ancestral homelands of the Tongva community. I'm an artist, I'm a cultural worker. I'm also an arts administrator and a bunch of other things that artists have to do to be artists. As I mentioned, I was born and raised here, so my work is very much tied to my community and both my community in the physical form, but also like my artist community as well. And this where I grew up has always been severely under-resourced. It continues to be to this day, very little to no arts programming. So as an artist, that's kind of what my work has been shaped by, the inaccessibility, but also the opportunity for folks like myself, who sometimes take initiative to do things without permission, and to just get them done, to do it yourself. I come from, also come from the punk rock background on the punk scene here in East LA. So we very much did a lot of things on our own, figured it out, or you learn it by doing it, right? You make mistakes along the way and other folks, lift you up and you keep moving forward. So a lot of my work kind of comes with that, with that intention behind it of how to operationalize some of this on our own as artists. And so many times as artists with no degrees, with no sort of like institutional recognition or accreditation of any kind. And for many years, for artists like myself, applying to grants, surviving in the nonprofit world was very difficult and sometimes also like extremely violent on your spirit. Getting denied from a grant doesn't feel good. You're already suffering from imposter syndrome sometimes as marginalized artists or coming from marginalized and targeted communities. So when you get rejected, it also stings a little bit. So my work has really revolved. I mean, as a kid, I was always like hacking into things, taking radios apart, taking TVs apart, taking things apart to see how they work. And as an artist, very much do that as well. From programming to grants. And when I fell into the role of an arts administrator, those things all kind of coincided with one another, or they have like those multiple parts of me, the punk rock kid, the artist, the cultural worker, the community organizer, all had to figure out how to like live in one body. And kind of grant writing helped make a sense of all that for me. And it became a practice that to this day, like it's a practice for me. I see it as a creative practice, because it's great to imagine like, imagine what a program could be, and then how to, put that into practice, which many of us do without any funding out of pocket. But imagine how that could feel like when you have like, a program that is fully resourced, or an art project that is fully resourced. That feels good. So to me, like being able to develop programming for my community here, in that regard is creative work. And so a lot of my work in the last year or so has really revolved around this tension between public space and youth justice. As an artist, how do you how I fit into that picture? I grew up here in East LA. There was down the street from here, there was a shooting between community members and the police. That is the environment I grew up in. So how to make sense of that? Like art helped me make sense of that. But public space for young folks who are criminalized, like that is an asset that we rarely have. So this work around monuments and memorials and civic memory, to me, it's tied on two ends between how I grew up as a kid and how I live as an artist, or can be sustainable as an artist. This CALI Catalyst Award recognized the work that we did, and I say we because I don't do anything alone, of the removal of the Columbus statue and the Sarah statue in downtown Los Angeles. And for me, that is important because those statues always, those statues can and do erase the very lived realities of folks like myself, Indigenous folks, but in this case, like the first peoples of this place. And it can, there's a lot of science and research that went behind removing those monuments, even those that were toppled. But again, like, as somebody who views a lot of this as a schematic to like take apart and see where there's opportunity for justice. A lot of what we did that for some folks might seem like criminal acts or vandalism, the city and the county saw it a different way. So 2 weeks after the removal of the Sarah statue, the toppling, the city passed a motion saying that it was an act of civil disobedience because there didn't exist a process in the city to address some of these issues. And that's the work as an artist, as a creative person that that I dive deep into, and that this CALI Catalyst Award supported. Last year on Indigenous Peoples Day, the city formally apologized to the first peoples of this place. June of last year, the county apologized to the first peoples of this place. That work that we did back in November 2018 and June of 2020 weren't like ending points for this type of work, for what I consider creative action. There were beginning points, to a lot of this work, to reconcile the harm that, that's been caused through the development of the city, this county, the state, this nation. So when we talk about equity and justice, we also have to be able to talk about those things that we struggle to talk about. And I'm happy to share that in the last 2 to 3 years that I've done this work in this way, we've been able to apply to grants. And I say we again, because there's like arts organization that I help found and direct, Meztli Projects. We've been able to bring close to $1 million in new funds to East LA for arts programming to support Native and Indigenous youth and artists. So this work, I think for us as individual artists, finding a way or building a value system in which like we operationalize our work around is super important. And opportunity finds you, I would spend if I would dedicate my entire or a good chunk of my work in finding grants to support my work, I wouldn't be able to do my work. And by doing my work and really like crafting what that is, when I can say like my work is about uplifting non-institutional expertise, my work is about using arts-based strategies to reduce violence in our communities, like that short of a description, then, funders will find you, like funders will find you. And when I saw this CALI Catalyst Award, it was forwarded to me by a bunch of different people. And they were like, you should apply for this. And that wasn't me seeking out CCI, like I've known CCI for a long time. But that was like, like you do the work and then, to some regard, you have to apply for grants, but like, these opportunities do find you. So that's kind of like what my journey has been around grant writing and super thankful to CCI for this recognition and for this support. And what I did, with some of those funds was like buy art from California Indian artists too. So that was me like paying back to, to my community, so it was like, a form of like arts tax here, by art from Native artists. So thank you. That's kind of that's been part of my journey. So I'm happy to share that with you all.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. And oh my gosh, profound. And thank you for sharing. And we're going to hear more from Joel. towards the end of the workshop, we're going to have a moderated panel, and we are going to hopefully have some time for some CALI specific questions. But next, I'm going to turn it over to 2021 CALI Catalyst Grantee Ann James. She unfortunately was unable to be here. She had a scheduling conflict, but she's amazing and sent us a video testimonial. So we're going to play that for you right now.
Let me get my butterfly situated here. Hello, I am Ann James, and it gives me great pleasure to address you as a potential applicant for the CALI Catalyst Grant Program. I am a recipient, and I have been, blessed by this opportunity to utilize the grant funds for helping to shore up my company. My company is called Intimacy Coordinators of Color, and I was able to hire someone to help me with my social media. I was able to hire someone to help me with my certificate program, intimacy coordinators and directors on a national level. And I was also able to pay for a platform as opposed to just having a web page. So now I have a platform where we can engage with our audience. We have a newsletter now. We also have the opportunity to buy merchandise. We have an opportunity to share videos and have those videos there for people to purchase and watch at their own leisure, instead of having to fit within a schedule for our presentations and outgoing education in the intimacy world. I found out about the CALI Catalyst just by luck. You're probably here because someone either told you about the program or that you found it just by doing a search on the internet about what's happening in Los Angeles in the grant world. I was so happy that I found CALI Catalyst. I prepared my application. I didn't overthink it. I didn't overthink applying. I just shared my experience and spoke from my heart and spoke from the fact that there are many people in the entertainment industry who are not able to get intimacy direction and intimacy coordination from people who look like them. And I needed the help to spread the word, to get the word out, and to help me as a sole proprietor with an LLC to support the work that I needed to be done by hiring other people. And CALI Catalyst was definitely helpful in that regard. Well, the grant has impacted my career in several ways. One, now I can concentrate on the creative side of developing my company. I can meet with people. I have time to do panel discussions and write articles. I'm also in an MFA program, so it is at Loyola Marymount University. So it has allowed me time because I can delegate the things that I need to other people on my team, and I can give them financial support for helping to support my work in the field. So it has been a huge impact on my work, and I'm so grateful to CALI Catalyst for helping me. Good luck, apply, speak from your heart, and let them know what's going on in your part of the world and in your Los Angeles experience. Let them know. I couldn't be more grateful.
Awesome. Another amazing, inspiring, profound sharing with the group. And since Ann isn't here, I'll just elaborate on her work. As she mentioned, she works in the intimacy industry, and part of her application talked about how it was kind of being co-opted and commandeered by mostly heteronormative white women. And as she said, people were having difficulty accessing intimacy coordinators and coaches that looked like them. And so part of her action was addressing that and addressing it in a very public facing way. She wrote a letter on HowlRound, which is a really, it's a platform that a lot of people in the theater community look to for information about the field. And so that's what we were recognizing and work for. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. It's a visual directory of the 2021 CALI Catalyst Grantees and just provides more in-depth profiles about each one. I believe there was 19, so you can see how they were enacting these bold actions in their region and how it was shifting more power and influence to underrepresented communities. And I think with that, we'll turn it over to my friend Nicole to tell us about Quick Grants.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Nicole Winthrop, Program Associate. I'm calling from unceded Potwin land in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. Okay, so similar to the CALI Catalyst presentation, we'll have a program overview, do a grantee spotlight, and then there'll be room for audience Q&A at the end. Please feel free to drop questions in the chat meanwhile. Okay, so what is Quick Grant? The Quick Grant program provides up to $600 in reimbursable funds to residents in the state of California to enroll in professional development activities in order to build administrative capacity, hone business skills, and strengthen the financial sustainability of the applicant's career as an individual artist, creative, cultural practitioner, and/or cultural producer. That's a mouthful. And so I want to touch on a couple of the points I have bolded. Reimbursable. Reimbursable means a grantee will pay for the activity upfront. When the grantee completes the activity, you would complete your voucher, which comes with your award letter, a 3-question report, and email it back to CCI. We would then review the report and the voucher and issue your payment via direct deposit, which takes 3 to 5 business days or by check. The second point is professional development. The most common activities approved for Quick Grant funding include workshops, conferences, and seminars. Topics range from grant making to fundraising to marketing and communications. What I want to bring to attention to is that this award is for professional development, not artistic development. This award is also not for research or any type of activity that is not directly connected with building administrative and business capacity. The most common reason for declinations, or one of, is that the applicant requests support for something like an art class or a mural project or an art exhibit. This is strictly a professional development grant program. And the last point I want to touch is I have bolded individual artists, and you heard this language used in the CALI Catalyst Grant program. This award is for individual artists, and it's an opportunity for CCI policy to appreciate how persons identify as artists. So we try to capture as many categories as possible, as you see here. Artists and creatives from Quick Grant come from all types of disciplines: poetry, theater arts, opera, UX, UI, graphic design, AR, VR, XR artists, podcasters, you name it. We only require, as part of the application, a resume. So please make sure however you define yourself as an artist is supported by any documentation you provide. Next slide. Quick Grant eligibility. Go ahead, O'Kiley, just yeah, thank you. So Quick Grants are for professional development or technical assistance activities, which I touched on, and I'll go through some examples. Attending a festival, gathering, convening, or conference to build knowledge in your field and expand or deepen your network. Participating in a workshop or training that builds fundraising, marketing skills. working with a consultant, coach, mentor to strengthen your leadership or communication skills. And you see I have two asterisks. I know I'm talking to primarily LA group, so I want to bring this to everyone's attention. I'm going to read the policy. As of May 16, 2019, LA County applicants may request to work with a consultant, coach, or mentor, so that one-on-one development, but should make a case for how this learning cannot be attained in any other way. Due to limited resources, requests by LA County applicants to work one-on-one with a consultant are extremely competitive. Priority will instead go to LA County applicants who propose group activities, such as public workshops, conferences, and trainings. I would suggest reaching out to CCI staff to discuss your proposal if you are considering one-on-one development and you are LA based, and just maybe vet it out with us, and we'll provide the email. It's quickgrant@cciarts.org. Next slide. A Quick Grant is a competitive grant program, and I'm referring to the slide, Quick Grant Review Criteria. What I mean by competitive is that we receive generally more requests for funding that we have available. I would say on average, we approve maybe 40 to 50% of applications that come in. So with this in mind, when we are in a highly competitive round, we do lean on our review criteria, and we look to the proposed impact statement to determine grantees. And the statement has a 350-word limit. Go ahead, click, Kylie. I shared an example of an example proposed impact statement that was recently approved, which I'll read. As an individual artist, I have been looking for specialized, affordable help to update my website and make it easy for people to see and purchase my work virtually. Recently, X began offering workshops to help update websites, manage marketing, and build a new sales platform for my business. I believe this workshop will better enable me to promote and sell my original and reproduction artworks virtually. So this is a clear statement on the impact this activity will have on the applicant's professional development as an artist. And next slide. Application deadlines, Quick Grant, hence the name. It happens monthly. Applications are due on the 15th every month, and we have a 1-month turnaround. So I have a grid here to give an example. Our upcoming deadline is June 15th. So your activity will want to start on or after July 16th. We can end slide. Okay, so we'll continue the conversation and hear from our current grantees of Quick Grant. I'd like to begin with Patricia. Patricia Zettenmeyer is a songwriter, writer, lyricist. Patricia received Quick Grant to enroll in Shoebox Lab workshops for business training in 2022. Welcome, Patricia.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Patricia Zantmeyer. I am here in Los Angeles on Tongva land. I'm a songwriter, and I also write book and lyrics for musical theater. And I received a Quick Grant twice, actually in 2021 and in 2020. And I applied for individual mentoring, which I didn't know at the time was difficult to get. And what I did, so my pain point was that the musical theater world is very small, and I live in LA, not New York, and it's still, even though things have changed because of COVID, it's still a very New York centric world, and not living there is, is not the best thing in the world. So for me to find a way into that community and find the information I needed wasn't that easy to do. And during COVID, I spent a lot of time online trying to meet people and suss things out. And I had taken a class with this particular guy who had come from the theater world. He had in fact been a producer and had produced some shows on Broadway and won a Tony, but then he had moved out of that world. And now what he does is he coaches people who are trying to create businesses like what he does now, which is coaching and mentoring in the wellness field. So the classes that he was offering were more towards people doing that, which was what I was getting out of. But because he had been in theater, he had all the knowledge that I needed to know, but he wasn't teaching that in a class form. So I wanted to work with him privately, and he thought that I would be best served that way, but he cost $200 an hour, which is a lot of money. So because it's private mentoring, I can see him for 15 minutes if I want. I don't have to do a whole hour. So when I applied, I didn't know what we would be doing because it's not a class, so there wasn't some sort of syllabus. It was what I thought I wanted to know. So I hypothesized over a 6-month period the questions I might ask. Like, I needed to build a website. I needed to understand social media. I needed to know who am I looking for to produce my show? Am I looking at theaters? And if so, which ones? And am I looking for individual producers? And how do I find those people? So I set those up. I just said, in January, we'll work on how I talk about myself. In February, we'll work on how I find producers. And I kind of made it up because I didn't know. And then that's what I submitted. I got a letter from him too. I don't think that was my idea. I think I had to get a letter. So he wrote a letter saying that he thought I would be better served by private mentoring. And that's what we did. Is there something else I'm supposed to answer here? My pain point, the outcome. So I had thought we would spend more time when that first grant on finding producers for my show. But then as COVID went on, and I had thought, like all of us, we kept thinking the restrictions will be dialed back and more theater will be being produced. But since that wasn't happening, we then focused very specifically on my website, how I present myself, how I organize the two things I do, because writing songs for popular music that will then be placed in media is a whole different world than theater. And I didn't really know how I presented that coherently, how I explained how one was different than the other so that it would be interesting, or not interesting to people, but not confusing when they went to my website. And that was the biggest thing that came out of it, was a nice website that presents who I am. And that's hard, talking about yourself, especially if you're new and you've always been encouraged to not talk about yourself. So he was the perfect guy for me, and I ended up applying again the year after that, which was in 2021, and it's a mentoring I'm getting now. So it's been priceless, actually. But that's what I have to say.
And appreciate you, Patricia.
Sure.
We'll hand it over to Monica Leal Cueva. Monica is an artist and photographer based in LA. Monica received Quick Grant to enroll in a self-paced QuickBooks online level 1 training in 2021.
Yes.
Welcome,
hi,
Monica.
everyone. Thank you. Yes, my name is Monica. I'm here in the Arts District in LA. And I had known CCI for a while. I had taken a couple of classes there, but I honestly hadn't really paid attention to the grants whenever I received emails until I was in need for one. So what happened was that I had been working here in this space that I'm at right now for 10 years for my boss, who is an artist, and he was giving private instruction to other artists, and I was basically his assistant. And it came to a point where he said he was going to retire, and I said, well, I want to keep the space and I would like to keep the business running. My main interest was to have a place to live and to have a place to have my own photo studio and my own art practice, my space for my art practice, while keeping that business alive, where he would only have to teach and not do anything else. I would take care of all of the administrative and maintenance and scheduling, like all other activities except teaching would be on me. I discovered really quickly that I needed to learn how to do bookkeeping, and that was going to be crucial for me to really have a healthy business and to also grow my own freelance practice. All of a sudden, I had to make invoices and I had to understand how taxes were going to affect me. And I have two different situations, an LLC and my own freelance work. The thing is that it was on me to do all of this. And so I looked for bookkeeping classes and I found the QuickBooks ones, and they were $599 and the grant was for $600. So I thought it would be perfect. For me to apply to the grant was really easy. I don't remember it being a hard thing to do. I just explained what it was for. I thought it was perfectly fitting. It was going to, getting this class was going to help me really focus on the business side of things, which is something that as an artist, I didn't get to do that much before this. And I also wanted to have the vocabulary for me to communicate with the accountant. You know, when it's time to do the taxes, I would get emails requesting information from me that I didn't know what any of it meant, because my first language is not English. Even though I've been living here for 15 years, I don't talk taxes. So it was really important for me to know all of that. And so, yeah, it was a fairly easy process, and I was very happy when I got it. And the one thing that I really loved about this is that people at CCI were very flexible with me. I was in the middle of the transition when I was supposed to take the class, and it was just impossible because I was remodeling the place. It took me months. So for me to take 2 or 3 days to sit on the computer, it's a really long class. So it was really impossible. So I kept asking for extensions, like, can you please wait for me another month? Can you please wait for me another month? So thankfully, they were able to do that for me, and I'm very grateful for that. And well, the result is that I feel a lot more confident, definitely. I can use QuickBooks to record everything that I'm doing for my business. And in terms of the LLC, we do have a bookkeeper, but I do most of the work now, and we don't have to use her that much because I can now manage my way into recording expenses and income and all that stuff. So I actually discovered that I love the business side of things, and I want to take more classes and marketing. I'm loving all of that, which I wasn't expecting. So yeah, that's my story.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. Thank you so much, Monica. Well, I'll elevate some points made, and meanwhile, we do have some time for more questions, so please feel free to drop those in the chat. I just want to elevate some points that were made by both of you. It's wonderful to hear from our grantees. I'm always emailing, so it's great to hear from you. It was mentioned that, yes, Patricia received the award twice. You can be a grantee once per fiscal year. CCI's fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. That's a long-winded way of saying, yes, once per year you can receive this award. Patricia also spoke about working with a consultant, and thank you so much for walking us through how you applied, since it's just in some ways we discourage it, but you really made the case. You got a letter of commitment from the consultant you will work with to talk about the the nuances of this kind of training and why it needs to be individual, and also setting the context of the field. It's a niche area, perhaps in theater. The work that the consultant is doing is in wellness. So just really building the case, like this is not the kind of training that you'll find in a workshop. And you provided documents. We love documents in grant making. So you provided the documents to support your case. And also wanted to elevate, Patricia, that you use that opportunity to build a strategic plan. That is a common request that I see coming in from quick grant applicants who are awarded, is that they need this like comprehensive view of what does my business look like from a macro level. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And then Monica, flexibility with the grant program. We're people. You're seeing us. We're the ones on the other end. So just reach out, call us. And I think what Monica was speaking to was the to claim your reimbursement. We give you 30 days upon completion of your activity. So let's say I sign up for a marketing workshop. It ends tomorrow, May 26th. So I have until basically the end of June to claim that reimbursement. And if you need more time, certainly we'll work with you. Just let us know. I'm glad, Monica, that you said it was easy. I'm glad to hear that. I think that probably you want to spend an hour, maybe hour and a half. I do recommend reading the guidelines with any grant program. Read the guidelines, read the FAQs, and I think Quick Grant is one of the easier applications out there. So I'm glad to hear that from you. I'm just love, Monica, that you talked about the business aspect of art, right? And I hear this is a pain point comes up a lot from students who get their MA. They go to school for art, and I see often that I just didn't get that business training. And you're talking about bookkeeping and managing the business end so that the art can happen, right? So I appreciate you for bringing that up. I'll give it air for any. I don't see any questions coming in. So let's if I can, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Allison.
Thanks, Nicole. Well, that was a sort of a perfect segue because I'm Allison Wiper. I'm the Artist Knowledge Manager at CCI here in the Los Angeles office. And if you've attended any of our workshops before, chances are you've seen me hosting. Glad to see a lot of familiar names here today. So I'm going to be talking just sort of quickly about our workshops, and in particular our Business of Art, which is our sort of core entrepreneurial training program. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so if you signed up for this webinar, you've been to our website, but I just want to show you where you can find workshop information. So this is cciarts.org homepage. This is the workshop that you are attending right now. If you're curious about our workshops, there's a couple of places you can look. Right here on our homepage under upcoming workshops, we'll feature the ones that are coming up next, including our Emergency Prep 101 workshop that's in a couple weeks. We also have some archived webinars here from past presentations that are definitely worth checking out. And as you know, this workshop as well will join our archives on our YouTube channel. You can also come up here to workshops, either just click on the word workshops or calendar to see a calendar of upcoming workshops. I'm going to take us in here to about workshops. So as Monica shared earlier, most artists, and I myself, I'm a performance artist, so I'm right there with you. Most artists find managing the business side of our practice to be a major challenge, right? So as artists, we tend to have tremendous skills and often really extensive training, but usually that training does not include the marketing, the financials, or the legal issues that are really critical to doing our work and to making a living doing that work. So I think somebody is unmuted, if we can check that out. CCI provides entrepreneurial training for individual artists and cultural workers in all disciplines to enhance their business knowledge and career prospects. Our signature Business of Art training program started in 2002. We also partner with local organizations, foundations, art schools, and communities throughout California to create and deliver customized training programs designed to meet the needs of their individual artist communities. The Business of Art series, which we present at least one time a year, is currently a 9 to 10 week online, or sometimes occasionally hybrid online and in-person boot camp for an interdisciplinary cohort of about 20 to 25 artists. And there's several folks on the call today who are alumnas of our program. The individual workshops in that series center on goal setting and values, marketing and promotion, strategic planning, financial management, legal issues, and funding your art. Our workshops, they're super highly interactive, and we really promote a lot of peer learning and relationship building amongst the cohort. So you're spending sometimes 2 to 3 months with a small group of artists working in a lot of breakout rooms, maybe meeting outside to go through worksheets, things like that. So it's a really great opportunity to be learning from each other and finding other artists and potential accountability buddies from your community. The next Business of Art series is not yet on our calendar, but it will be this summer. It will likely take place from September to November of 2022. So check out either our upcoming workshop calendar, our monthly newsletter, or our social media channels to keep an eye on that. It always sells out. I'm going to repeat that. It always sells out. So as soon as you see that the Business of Art is open for registration, I recommend signing up right away. The Business of Art is a perfect activity for a quick grant application. Okay, it's a absolutely perfect thing to do. And usually at least half of the participants of the Business of Art series that CCI runs out of our offices is half quick grantees. If you do want to get a quick grant to attend the Business of Art, I recommend, again, registering for the workshop early. That may mean you have to pay up front early, so just be prepared for that. And get your quick grant application in at least 1 to 2 months in advance of the first workshop. Again, keeping in mind what Nicole said earlier about the 15th through the 15th, the sort of 1 month turnaround. And that will be more clear when you actually see the registration page. It'll say what date you have to apply for a quick grant by, but just keep an eye on that and keep in mind that you really want to sign up as soon as possible. We also offer standalone workshops, and recent topics have included tax tips, pricing your art, time management, intellectual property protection, and managing your personal finances, amongst other topics. Currently, our standalone workshops range from free, like today, up to $25, usually sliding scale, where you can pay whatever level is most comfortable for you. We collaborate with independent coaches and consultants, many of whom, if not most of whom, are also practicing artists who present the content that we feel artists and creative workers really need now. And we're very responsive. We usually have feedback forms that we issue at the end of those workshops, and we take feedback directly from you all to program those workshops. So currently, all of our workshops are on Zoom. In the months and years to come, whenever you're watching this video, we may be resuming some in-person workshops as well, generally near our home bases of Los Angeles and San Francisco, but oftentimes other parts of California as well. But currently they're online, so I know we have somebody calling in from the Midwest. You can join us in those online webinars. And again, if you want to see what we have coming up, you can either go to our homepage or go to the workshop calendar here. I'll show you what that looks like. You can see here the upcoming workshops. Our 21-22 season is about to end, but this summer you will start to see this populate with late summer and fall workshops. And then the last thing I want to point out is that the workbook for our Business of Art series is available on its own. You can just purchase that book at any time. This is the companion book to our workshops, and it contains worksheets. Currently, we have just published last year a 3rd edition, so it's really up-to-date information right now. It's a paperback book, but every purchase you get a link to a Google Drive with some fillable PDF worksheets that can kind of help you if you want to work in virtual space on developing your business. And again, you have chapters on your core values, goals, and vision, marketing your work, designing your business model, legal issues, money management, financing your work, and moving forward with a plan. Several of our contributing writers are California artists or even Southern California, Los Angeles artists. So I encourage you to check that out. Again, it's available on our website, either from the homepage, or you can go to resources, publications and press, and scroll down to business of art. Okay, I'm gonna stop screen share now. And now I'd just like to toss it back again to Patricia. Patricia, as of tomorrow, yay, is about to graduate from one of our Business of Art boot camps that is being hosted by the City of West Hollywood. And so Patricia, I would love to hear, if you just give a couple minutes, just tell us what it was like. What's it been like participating in this boot camp?
It has been so much more than I thought it would be. So I've spent a lot of time during COVID, and maybe a lot of you have too, of availing myself of all, like a webinar here, like branding over here and taxes over there. And what this has done is it's put everything together in a coherent kind of soup to nuts look at business, because you know, when you learn things in little bits and pieces, you know, you're missing things, but you're not sure what or where those cracks happened. So being able to take a week at a time to focus on your core values, for instance, it enlightened me more than I thought it would. And I would definitely say, if you don't want to do the whole class, this book is really helpful. You can't see because of my background, but it's really helpful to have those worksheets. Like, you think you know the answers to some of those things, like your core values, but until you do the exercises, you know, if you haven't examined it, you haven't examined it, most likely. So those things have been really, really helpful. And having artists themselves teaching us, like Amy, who does the taxes, you know, to have her come in and give you that perspective on it. It's very empowering. You know, for me, I always felt kind of helpless, like, oh, I'm an artist, I don't know how to do things like this. And it's not so. I actually was surprised at how much I have managed to pick up piecemeal during COVID from random webinars, but I feel like it's taught me things I didn't know, shown me things I hadn't seen, and solidified the things I had seen. And then the support from my classmates and the friendships that I've made is so supportive, because for me, I only really started to make music be my business during COVID, and I've been alone the whole time. So having a cohort of friends, especially so many being local, because I've made all these friends in New York, which is great, you know, for theater, but it doesn't feel as real. And I can't say, let's meet for coffee, which that can happen here. So that's been it's been very empowering emotionally as well as practically. So I would really encourage people to take advantage of it.
Thank you, Patricia. Super appreciate your feedback. Okay, so now let's turn things back to Nicole, Laura, and the panelists. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to hear some more from the panelists about their grant seeking experience. And let's hear from Patricia again. Let's keep talking to Patricia. Patricia, can you tell us a bit about your experience as a new grant seeker and how you connected with CCI?
I connected with CCI because I heard about the Quit grant through New Musicals Inc., which is a musical theater writers workshop here in Los Angeles. And I know nothing about grants. This is a totally new world for me. So I thought, oh, people give you money? Okay, okay. Um, and I got, the first time I applied for the first Quit grant, I got it, which was so exciting to me, and just so exciting to be able to work with this $200 an hour consultant. But then the second year I applied, I didn't get it. And I was so confused. I didn't know what I'd done wrong. And I just sort of thought, oh, well, I didn't get it. Okay. And that was that. And then like 2 or 3 months later, I thought, well, wait a minute. And I think in an email, I went back and looked at the emails I had gotten from CCI. And I think it said in an email, if you don't get approved, call us. And so I did. And I spoke with Nicole, and she said, I think you probably should have been approved. I don't know why you didn't get approved. Maybe try again. So I just did it again. And I didn't really do anything different. I don't think I did anything different from what I had. And then I did get approved. I think sometimes, and maybe it's because it was for consulting, and that's harder to make your case. And I think maybe, there's been a decision made to have more of that money go to classes and workshops and things that exist rather than private mentoring. Maybe it was the month that I happened to apply, but I did it again. And in the process, I got to know Nicole a little bit and feel comfortable with that. And then for this call, we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I ended up having a conversation with Laura that was really helpful to both of us, as far as me understanding that, these are, y'all are people, just people, and mostly y'all are artists. And it's not, I don't know, like a moonshot. It's real, and it's real, and it happens, and it's valuable. And there's a whole team of people. There's a whole group of people just like you and just like me, who are wanting us to succeed and wanting to uplift those of us who maybe haven't been heard or haven't put ourselves out there and fallen on our faces a few times before we make it work. But there's support and friendships that happen, and it's great.
That's awesome. Yeah, we had, after that planning call, we had intended just to go over you just had some questions about CALI Catalyst, and I just assumed, we'll be on the phone for 5 minutes, and it turned into like a 45-minute call because it went into like various directions. And I just want to elevate some threads, or pull out some threads, which are, firstly, Patricia contacted us, the funder, really the supporter of y'all's work, to find out like what happened. And I don't have the information in front of me, but it's very likely it either had to do with it being a very competitive month, and we prioritize first-time applicants. And so since you had received a grant previously, we prioritize people that were, was their first time applying, or that element of the LA consultant policy. We, for whatever reason, wanted to see a different case made for how it was a unique offering. That's beside the point. You got that information, and that goes for any grant that you apply for. If you're declined, find out why. It can strengthen future proposals. And often, people think, I think you said it, like, what did I do wrong? Often there's nothing you did wrong, and it's, people feel invalidated, and that's not the intention at all. I think instead, you can call the funder, build that relationship, find out how to strengthen things that could be improved upon. And in so doing, you're also just building a relationship with that person. And so when I talked to Patricia, I learned she's having a really hard time finding opportunities for musical theater. And I thought, well, that can't be. So I'm like taking it upon myself, like when I see opportunities, because they've got to come down the pike, like I'm thinking of Patricia immediately and sending them her way. So similarly, you know, we're just humans. Oftentimes we're just interacting through email, but the opportunity to talk to someone on the phone and hear more and learn more is, I think, invaluable on both sides.
Yeah, so talking about our planning call, we got to learn a little bit more about each of our panelists today, and we learned, Joel, that you're a little bit more seasoned in the group. So please, would you impart some of your wisdom with us? And can you just tell us a little bit about how you developed your experience? Seems like you're comfortable with applying for grants. You kind of have a formula. Yeah, would you share a little bit about that?
I would say I'm more out of the box than most folks that apply. And I think that's a good thing. And I think more artists should feel comfortable being a little bit different than what they think, you know, other people are doing. But one of the things that I think was really helpful at the start was I applied to be a grant reviewer for grants. And you learn a lot. You learn a ton. And I still do it because I always learn a lot. Either what not to do, how, you know, you kind of develop best practices depending on different funders, whether it's like state funders or local funders, because they're all going to ask different things, are going to be focused on different things. So it's good to know what their main focus is going to be. Some folks might, you know, emphasize, especially in this day and age, how this is connecting to like unrepresented communities. Some folks might focus strictly on like, what is your, which is great. This is one thing that, like, you know, 5 years ago wasn't something that was seen valid, like, but what is an artist's process to doing work? Not even what the project is, what is your process to do this work? And that's great that like those are becoming some of the questions that are being asked. So it's good to know like on the back end how it's reviewed. So when you apply, you know exactly how to communicate what you're doing. So that's been super helpful. So like here in LA, you can apply to review grants for LA County Arts Department, for the Department of Cultural Affairs. Those are easy starting points. Then like the state has the California Arts Council, you can apply to review grants for them. And you know, after a while, your name gets around from funder to funder, and you'll get requests to review grants for like other foundations. So that's really good. It puts you on, you know, also like, you know, it's a way for funders to know who you are. I got kind of thrown into grant writing, but leadership programs also like Arts for LA's Emerging Arts Leaders Program. Those are helpful. Like there's also national models like the National Association of Latino Arts and Culture. They have the Leadership Institute. Those type of programs also really help. And they're everywhere. So you can find them at a local level, like here in LA, and at a national level. So that's one thing that really helped me. I did NALAC back in 2012 to really learn how to talk about my work, especially when it's work that's very non-traditional. Like primarily I'm a visual artist that does murals, printmaking, installations. But it feels like in this moment, like the most vital piece of doing that work is how I do that work. So how do you talk about that? Learning how to talk about that has been super, super important. But back to Laura's point, like I've also learned like how to self-advocate for myself in those spaces or through those funders. The first handful of grants that I wrote when I started doing this at the organization I was previously with, we got them, you know, we got those grants. I was like, of course we got the grants. It was like a historically well-known arts organization. But the first grant that I didn't get, that's the one where I learned a lot from. And I think when applying for any grant can always feel like just a huge barrier to overcome, even after doing this for a while now. And there's that, I mean, for a lot of us, there's that feel that we have to overperform to feel valued and get the money that we hope to get. So we throw everything into these grant applications sometimes. And that's one thing I learned in that grant when we didn't get it, it was too big of a project for what we were applying for. And the budget that we had proposed alongside what we thought we were gonna do just didn't line up. And looking back at it, it's like, okay, this is what it was. Like, your budget is really gonna always tell the real story of whether you can do something or you can't. So if it's $10,000 for programming, be real about what you can do with that. Especially now when you take into account artist living wages. 5 years ago, $10,000, we would try to program that throughout the whole year. Like, let's stretch every single dollar. But that's not equitable. And that's also not like high quality work that you offer your community as an artist too, right? Like, when you're producing work, you're paying, something like $2,500 rent a month in LA. Like, how does that translate into your practice? Developing one painting probably cost you, that will take you a month to do, would probably cost you close to like, $3,500, $4,000 work of worth and time, right? So you have to build that value into, the grants that you apply for. And that's, if anything, that's the one key piece that I can share is like, you have to put real dollar amounts to your time and energy as an artist, but also like as a business. You're your own employee. And most folks don't account for that. They pay themselves as an artist, but they don't pay themselves as a business either. And that's really, really critical. And I think I learned that with CCI back in like 2004, so way back when. But it is, and that's kind of the approach that I've taken to, like, as an individual artist. I'm an individual artist that is employed by myself. Like, I employ myself to do this work. So I have to also account for that, like in budgets and stuff like that. And, back to like, advocating for yourself. We, the organization now that I help run now, applied for a pretty significant grant, high profile grant for that, for a state entity. And we were disqualified in the initial round. And at that point, I was kind of like, what? And so I called and checked in, and it ended up being an error on their side. So we got thrown back into the pool of funds, and we ended up being like the top two scores of a highly competitive grant. So sometimes it is just picking up the phone or sending an email and asking for clarity. I think asking for clarity is always going to help. And if anything, it gives you that time and space to like learn and see what the folks on the other end of the grant process are expecting from your proposal. And sometimes a 2-sentence response to like a 1,000-word limit thing is enough. Clarity in answers is super, super, super helpful. And then use that other space to inform grant reviewers who might not know the realities of your community, of your work, what it is that it is. How do you define equity as an artist? Tell them. So be succinct with answers, but also use that space to like, it's free space at that point to like advocate for yourself. So do it.
That was so rich. And I'm happy that you are, I think, making the point that grant writing, it's work. I think you talked about that earlier, that it could be a full-time thing. It is a full-time job for some people, just similar like with bookkeeping, that it requires full attention. And you mentioned you do grant reviews, you attend conferences. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, that was super. I think you checked all the boxes for all the tips and techniques that we would provide people with. So appreciate you, Joel. I know when folks were registering for this workshop, a lot of people were like, okay, grants, yes, I want to learn about them, but also who are the funders? Who's giving out these grants besides CCI? So I know, Monica, you received a grant, so I wondered if you could tell us who supported your work and what did they support, and just tell us a little bit about it. And then Joel, too, if you want to provide a couple examples, that would be great.
Yes, so I The only other grant that I've applied for and that I got, it's called Not Real Art Grant. And this is for artists in almost any medium. You apply, they have $12,000 to give out to 12 artists. That's how it was when I applied. So I got $1,000. Now it's $12,000 for 6 artists. So if you get it, you get $2,000. That money is for anything you want. They don't ask for any proof of anything. They just give you the check and you can do whatever you want with it. And it is given to artists with a point of view about rebellion in the good sense of the word, you know, just standing up for things that perhaps challenge the status quo, stuff like that. So I actually thought I wasn't going to get it because I didn't think that I had that in my work, but it turned out that they did see something in there. So what I did with that money was print a humongous print for the show that they were offering. So you win the money, you also get a chance to be in their show, and also you get interviewed for a podcast. And so for that show, I thought I'll do something that I wouldn't do otherwise. I wouldn't spend that money printing a huge print for that. And I did it, and it was amazing, and I loved it. So you get the chance to do either to get support if you're lacking in some financial area, but you could also just do things that you hadn't done before that you wouldn't do otherwise. So yeah, I really recommend that for everyone. It's also, when I say it's easy to apply, I don't mean that they don't require anything. I just mean it's, as long as you're honest and, like Joel said, you communicate clearly, I just don't see how you can be rejected other than there's too many people applying. So.
I dropped in a link to Mosaic Philanthropy, who's like more of a newer entity. And I think they're trying to figure out exactly like what they're doing, which is great. Because as an artist, it can help shape how they, you know, how they fund and support artists. Mostly they've been doing it through like an arts exhibition that they do annually, but I mean, they give out good chunks of change for artists, like $2,500, $5,000. I believe what I got from them was $5,000 back in at the start of the pandemic, which was at the time where like a lot of artists had lost a lot of work. And for me, as doing the type of work that I do, it doesn't translate to like traditional funders for artists. So Mosaic Philanthropy has been one that's been a little bit more on the non-traditional side. Also CCI with this CALI Catalyst Award, right? Like, but LISC, I want to drop this in there. I think it stands for Local Initiative Support Corporation. As an artist and as being a small business, they have a lot of funds to support the development of small businesses. So if you're an artist who has not even stepped into like, how do I, you know, kind of formalize my being an artist as a small business, like they have not only the resources to help build that, but from time to time, they also have funding for that, which is like non-restricted funds. You can, you know, use it for the development of like your business, whether it's a website, whether it's, you know, you name it. Learning a new medium, because that'll expand your business as an artist. But I think, or I know that one of the most important parts that always gets overlooked by individual artists is neighborhood council grants. So all your neighborhood councils usually have small grants that you can apply for. They could be as small as $500, but as big as like $5,000. They're like usually 1 or 2 page applications. Many times they won't fund individual artists, but it's easy to partner with another like nonprofit in the area, another like, you know, a small business in the area to do some of that. And once you get a few, and once you get like, you know, kind of your feet wet in like neighborhood council grants, a lot of times, because they really have a hard time funding or giving away all their funds towards the end of the year, you'll get calls of like, we have like $10,000 that we don't know what to do with. Like, can you help us figure it out? That type of stuff is always out there. And it's super important, and they're super accessible. It's people that you probably already know on the neighborhood council. So like you stand a better chance of, you know, accessing small funds from folks like them than applying. I mean, you should apply for also to like these national funders as well. And then think of the like the non-traditional stuff. Like if you're a weaver, who is supporting like weavers, right? Whether you're doing like, you know, very traditional indigenous forms of weaving to like very experimental stuff. Like there's usually somebody out there that's supporting this type of stuff, but it takes a little bit of research to figure out like where you fit in. And for me, we're like, you know, I kind of don't fit in into many of these things. So that's kind of been like how we've been able to piecemeal some of the support for the individual work that I do, for the work that we do collectively. And after a while, like I mentioned, once you do this and you like are consistent with your approach, people find you, funders find you. So, I mean, that's what I can share about like, you know, like some of the funders who like really help build the foundation that I'm working around now.
That was great. Thank you both. I think you lifted up some really good channels of support. And I love, Joel, that you also brought up something outside of like arts, proper arts writ large, LISC. So you don't necessarily have to narrow your focus on just arts related grants, but also adjacent enterprises that can support other aspects of your work as a sole proprietor, as a business. And then we wanted to mention some other, and you also mentioned neighborhood councils. So similarly, like wherever you are in LA County, whatever your municipal agency is, City of West Hollywood is who supported the Business of Art Intensive. So as an example, they probably do and have initiatives for individual artists. We know that LA CultureNet is a great aggregator of resources and opportunities. CCI's monthly newsletter is kind of awesome. We collect a lot of grant opportunities for individual artists in particular, because that's our focus. We know that resources often go to organizations and don't really trickle down to individuals. So that's why we're focused on individuals of all stripes in the arts and culture sector. What was the other one I was going to say? Oh yeah, Joel, you pointed to this, which is you can always start by looking at your peers' CVs or resumes and see who supported their work. Who are people that you either admire or are, you know, part of your network, and what awards or grants, fellowships, residencies, et cetera, have they received? And start there and look there, and that'll inevitably lead to other opportunities.
We have somebody from
to,
the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council dropped in the chat that it's the end of the fiscal year. So it's a good time to like reach out to your neighborhood councils and asking them like, what money you have left. Really, those applications are like 1 or 2 pages long.
We're coming to the end, so please, here's your chance. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. One question that came up in the chat was about unrestricted funding, because I just want to touch on that. The CALI Catalyst is unrestricted. Joel mentioned using the funds to purchase art to support Indigenous artists in that area. So, but the quick grant is project restricted. That is for whatever activity you put forth. Laura, I see you on mute. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to say, just give as another example, I mean, a CALI Catalyst grantee could theoretically use the money to pay for their rent, pay for health insurance, pay for art supplies, pay for groceries. We don't care. We are interested in knowing eventually, like, how did you spend it? You know, it's an investment in the person and in the work that they already enacted and potentially took a risk to enact, either professional or personal risk. and even if risk wasn't a factor at all, they enacted something really bold, and potentially there isn't financial support for that kind of work. So that's the niche that Catalyst is filling.
Yeah. Well, listen, so much, so rich. This is going to be recorded if you had to go back. I'll just repeat some of the nuggets of, the tips for grant seekers. When you're looking at the application, answer the questions. Maybe take this as an opportunity to educate the reviewer, provide context for your work, provide context for the community they're representing, especially in the case of CALI Catalyst. Don't make assumptions. Don't assume the panelists know what you're doing. You have to spell it out, unfortunately. But that's another conversation. Stay in relation. All of the panelists today have directly connected with us. Now, I don't want to set an unreasonable expectation. Not all foundations or nonprofits operate that way, but I heard mostly good things from panelists today. So certainly I think it's worth trying, and refine your mission, stay true to your objective, make it very clear. And that might require going to workshops and conferences on how do I really craft or cultivate my artist statement. Yeah, it's going to take work. Is there anything else? Actually, we're at time. So I'm going to hand it over to Kylie. Thank you.
Awesome. And yes, like I said, this is recorded. Thank you everyone so much for joining us, and for this illustrious team, the grantees, and for my colleagues. Yeah, this is an amazing opportunity that has been provided. And I just hope it inspires you all to really just try, and to get out there and to tell your story. So yeah, I also want to thank the City of Los Angeles, the Department of Cultural Affairs. It wouldn't be without them, we wouldn't be able to put this together. So yeah, definitely connect with them too and let them know that we put this on for y'all. So remember, mark your calendars. We have CALI Catalyst Cycle 2, deadline June 30th. And then for quick grants, June 15th. So now you have all these little tools and things that will energize you. Go out there and get it. Definitely visit our website, CCIarts.org, to learn more. We got all the goodies up there. And definitely sign up for our mailing list. We also have on our website, keep updated on CCI happenings on our homepage. That's where we can get a lot of this information as well. And follow us on our socials. We're on Instagram, we're on the Facebook, we're on the Twitter, and we're always trying to update those and keep those as energized as well. So yeah, definitely reach out. If you haven't, we will definitely we would love to hear from you. Like, we are humans, you are humans, and we're all here trying to make worlds a little bit more shinier. So yeah, thanks again. And we're going to drop our emails. We're going to drop our emails again one more time in the chat. We have our CALI@cciarts.org, and then we have our quick grant at cciarts.org. And that's how you can find out more. Just reach out to us. Okay. So yeah, fantastic. Y'all take care now.